Hello and welcome to House of Heat. I am Kim Howerton and I am your sweating host today. It is 87 degrees currently in this room that I am in, which means my head is sweaty, my face is glowing. It's a little toasty right now. It's like the hottest day of the summer here in Berkeley, I think. I would assume at least in the top 3. So, welcome. We'll see how long I last before I dissolve into a puddle in this live. Good news is the breeze picked up. I opened the door. There's a little bit of a breeze suddenly, which means I think we crested peak heat and they're coming back on the other side, and by this evening it will be maybe very nice. And so but I might cut us a short tonight just because I need to leave this room. There's no cooler room to go into. Just leave the apartment because suddenly you get it. Cooler outside, go outside. But today I went out to run an errand and it was definitely hotter outside. So then I went back. So anyway, it's the beauty. And I always seem to start talking about these in these episodes about the weather, but I'm a middle-aged woman. I think that's just we talk about. I don't tend to talk about other people's health and things. That I think is that an older woman thing. I'm now offending everyone. Welcome to the live. Hello. Hi guys. I'm super happy to be here with you. Other than being a little bit punch drunk from the heat, I'm glad to be joining you. Can show you something. So this is the new Common Sense Labs book from Dr. Ken Berry and I, but it's not shipping yet, guys. This is a proof. I got an email where they're like, they're done. I'm like, no, this is a proof. So the printers sent me and Ken each a copy to look at before they did the big print run. And so that's what this is. So your copy's not yet in the mail, but it's pretty exciting that we can look at it in the version that you guys will be getting. So, but this is for sale now. It's at Common Sense Labs, just like the name, book.com. You have to add book. commonsenselabsbook.com is where you can find this book, and it ships at the end of the month. So you can buy it now. It'll ship to you when the print run is done, because currently there are 2 printed copies. I have one and Ken has one. So, but once the print run is done, we will be sending them out. There you go. So, so yay. And if you buy before then, you get a digital copy. Please be aware there may be some typos in the digital copy because we are doing our final edit now. By the way, what I'm going to do once we get everything done and all set up and ready, I will replace all the versions on the internet that people bought with the new version, right? Any updates we make. So if you buy a digital copy, so if you bought a digital copy, you didn't just get a free digital copy. If you bought a digital copy, what'll happen is on your receipt, there'll be a download button. Save that receipt, because if I ever update the book, you can download the new version, right? So so that is helpful. Now, that doesn't mean a new edition, right? We might make a version 2, but like as things go, if somebody found a typo, which there were a few, just a few, but a few typos, that you can get the typo-free version, unless you find the typos charming. Just call it character. However, I would like to say that some people are finding typos that aren't typos. It is the way of the world that we all. My mother. So in this book, oh look, it's a grammar lesson. In this book, there is a place where I say, there are myriad reasons. Now, we're used to hearing people say a myriad of reasons. That is actually incorrect. Myriad means many, so you use it myriad reasons. It's not technically, so sweaty. It's not technically so wrong to say a myriad, but it's actually more correct to leave that out. Did you know that? Did you know my brother was the editor-in-chief of a large newspaper? So guess who I get to go to questions with? So it's very helpful. But I tend not to address my questions to him until few versions in because I don't want to bother him. You know, does anyone like that? You're like, I don't want to bother him. It's this job. He does this all day. Anyway, welcome to Kim's Neuroses. That's what this show should be called, isn't it? Right? Okay, so does anyone have any questions about keto or low carb or recipes or blood lab books or anything? I'm very pleased with some of our graphics. There's a whole section on like blood sugars and what, oh, this hand, and what, you know, what different levels mean. So that's exciting. Yeah. Yep. All right. So I'm glad you guys, a lot of you said that you have ordered it. That's exciting. All right. Okay. So what, I'm just going to use it as a fan now. So what else is going on? Well, in a little over a week, I head out to Nashville for Ken Berry and Nisha Berry's event. And I have to say, I'm super excited about the event. I'm super excited to talk at the event, but I'm mostly super excited to meet my little honorary niecelet. I have not yet met her, so you know who I'm talking about. And also to give lots of love to Beckett. So Bonnie and Beckett are you know, Nisha doesn't have any siblings, so they're my nieces and nephew, or niece and nephew. That's what I'm claiming it, calling it. He does call me Aunt Kimmy, so that's, you know, Bonnie doesn't call me anything yet. Didn't speak yet, but they're awesome. So I'm really excited to get to spend time with them. And what else is going on? I posted something on my Facebook and on Instagram yesterday about calories. And there were mixed emotions about me using the word calories. So always happy to wade into that one if you guys want me to. Okay, I got a question though from Amy. What's your thoughts on long-term water fasting, like for 5 to 7 days? All right, that's going to make me have a sip of coffee. Okay. So if you're doing like a long-term, like a water fast, like once a year or something like that, some people look at that as like a really good, there's some discussion around like improved sort of cancer reduction, like incidence of cancer reduction. You know, if you just want to challenge yourself once a year or something like that, totally for it. Like, you don't have to optimize. You can't optimize for everything all the time, right? Optimize means you have a hierarchy of things that matter to you. It's, again, you can't optimize everywhere. Like you can't work 80 hours, be a very involved parent, and have lots of leisure time. You can't optimize for everything. So you have to think, what am I optimizing for? So for me, I think about, in terms of my health, what do I prioritize in terms of my health? And the things that I prioritize in terms of my health is good body composition. Good body composition is like top of the list. What do I mean by that? Having a good amount of muscle mass and a good amount of body fat, right? So like suitably low amount of body fat, some obviously, but not too much. And in terms of muscle mass, as much as possible, really, for my willingness to live. And so there is a point at which that won't be true, but it's hard. It's hard to get above there without some steroids. So I prioritize that over most things. Why do I prioritize maintaining good muscle mass over most things? I would say, so anyway, so let me back up a step so that I can say that better. So good body composition. Now, I want to be lean, at least lean-ish, but I don't want to do that at the risk of losing muscle mass. Now, there's a certain weight above which that shifts, right? So when I weighed close to 300 pounds, my sole priority really initially was mostly focusing on losing body fat. The ratio was really skewed towards body fat. But as that body fat started coming down, I had to say, like, hey, let's make sure I prioritize not losing muscle mass as much as I can as I lose body fat, right? Maintaining as much of that lean body mass as I could. You guys can kind of understand, right? The body is sort of, you can compartmentalize it into two parts. One is your fat mass and then everything else. So you got your body fat and everything else. And in that everything else is your muscle mass. But it also is like the weight of your organs, hair, skin, nails, like just everything but body fat. And so you want to maintain as much of your muscle mass as you can as you're losing body fat. Now, the good news is when you're very obese, when you have a lot of body fat, your body doesn't, it's like with the body fat, there's so much of it, just dumping it off when you're losing weight. You don't tend to lose as much body fat initially there. But as you become leaner, more of a balanced body fat, like before I had like 70% body fat, right? Now it's like, oh, or below the 50% mark and you want it to go down. You definitely want it below the 50% mark, right? And as you start, dipping lower, your body starts to get rid of more and more muscle mass as you lose weight. So the leaner you are, the more you have to worry about this if you're losing weight. And at the body composition I am currently at, I'm fluffy. I still have excess body fat, but not a lot of excess body fat, certainly not compared to where I used to be. And so for me, the thing I would rather, for my long-term health at this point, lose no more weight. If the equation was to lose weight, you have to lose muscle mass or much muscle mass, right? So if that was the bargain that I was offered, I would turn it down because I am a middle-aged woman. And as we age, we just naturally lose muscle mass. It just starts to decline as we get estrogen actually protects muscle mass a bit. And so as we age, that muscle mass will start to decline unless we fight really hard to keep it. And so for me, fasting is too great. Long fasting, not talking about intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. I'm not. But long fasts are too risky for me. And in my mind, too risky for almost any woman who is less than 40% body fat, who is over the age of 35 to 40. And so, like I said, doing it once a year or something, it's such a limited time versus, the rest of the time you've got. But it's in terms of what I find important. Find lots of opinions on this, but what I find important about longevity and health span and health, I would always prioritize other methods of weight loss because they are more likely to lose less muscle mass. I'm not saying you won't lose any, but you won't lose as much. Now, I will say, if you love fasting, I don't love fasting. So it's easy. It's like, I don't really drink. So if someone's like, no drinking for you, I'd be like, no problem, right? So if you love fasting, if fasting just floats your boat, like it just makes your life work, everything great, then there are ways to do it better. So they have found that if you lift weights aggressively, I don't mean like in the session, but like you're very focused on heavy weightlifting, then you can preserve more of that muscle mass in a fast. So people who do long fasts and are in the gym hardcore during their fasts will lose less muscle mass than people who are sedentary during their long fasts. So there are things you can absolutely do to prioritize it. But, we're sorry, so sweaty. So we're there, you just have to come up with the right balance. So I don't want to discourage people, but if you're me or my client, I mean, I have clients who love fasting, and so we make it work, right? But I would say if I'm just giving my opinion to the general population, which is essentially what I'm doing right now, right? I would never put somebody on a long fast, certainly not an older person. I would prioritize an appropriate amount of protein, put them in an appropriate calorie deficit for weight loss, and improve their body composition. If you're looking for increased autophagy, exercise actually has better autophagy than fasting. Again, I'm not against appropriate fasting. I'm certainly not against intermittent fasting, occasional fasting, but I think their risks potentially outweigh the benefits in a lot of cases. So that's where I am with that. All right. Angie and Melinda said, let's talk about calories. Okay. So I'll do that after I say, and Larry said, maybe talk a little bit about a Dexa scan. Okay. So you know what I was just talking about body composition? That a Dexa scan is what tells you that. So to find a place that does Dexa scanning, you would go to the internet, Google or whatever search field you're looking for, and put in, Dexa scan your city. And then when you find one, you want to make sure they do body composition DEXA scanning, because you can also just DEXA scan for bone density. You want the body composition kind. And the price will really vary. I've seen it. Some states don't seem to have any available DEXA scanning. Some states, it's $45 for a session. If you buy a package, like you buy 3 and they become, drops the price. Other places like $100. Do you need it? No, it's just another way to check in on your body composition. It tells you how much fat mass versus how much muscle mass you have. Now, if you're weighing and measuring yourself and looking at pictures, seeing how your clothes fit, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting, right? If you're trying to improve the way you feel, function, and live, you can see those things existing in your life, and you don't necessarily need numbers on it, but you might want to just track. If you're a data nerd, you might want to track those things. You might want to know actually how much muscle mass do I have? And what I just talked about, as you're losing weight, you want to maintain as much muscle mass as you have, how much lean body mass you have. Well, now you have hard numbers that you can watch and see how they change. Jenny says, I lost the email for the Common Sense Labs book. Jenny, if you want to email me, wait, you said, so I guess I wait till it gets here. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So if you ordered the hard copy, you won't get a new digital copy. That's just a tide you over digital copy. It's just if you bought a copy, you can find your email for that. If you lost the email, you can always email me, kim@theketonis.com, and I can pop you another one. Melissa, hi. The 2 names always gets me. What should an overweight lady eat and drink before or exercising at a gym? What has worked for you? Okay, so for the most part, it's all about how you feel. Fasted exercise versus fed exercise. So in terms of eating before you go to the gym. Now, if you're an elite athlete, there are different rules, right? If you're in the top several percent working on very specific workout goals and things, you're going to have a very specific approach to nutrition that I'm not going to be able to cover in this session, right? But the average, either new to working out or just regular person who's just trying to improve their body composition, live a healthy life, that kind of thing. Pre-gym, what I would do is pay attention to how you feel at the gym. So for me, I don't feel well when I eat before the gym, or at least when I eat much before the gym. I don't like any food feeling like it's still digesting for me. When I lift, I tend to get nauseous and just feel blech. So if I wake up hungry and I'm going to the gym, I might have a piece of fruit or a half a protein shake, just a little something to kind of take the edge off my hunger. But that's just for like sensation, right? That's just for how I feel. If I'm hungry when I go to the gym, I'm going to be distracted by that and not able to focus on my workout as much as I want. So I'll eat just a little snack before the gym, just so my energy levels feel good in the gym. Now, if it was going to be that I worked out in the afternoon, I would eat maybe 3 hours before the gym. That's kind of enough time to have digested fairly well, at least, the initial stages of my food. And so I would probably I work out in the morning. So, but if I were working out in the afternoon, I would eat no closer to my workout than maybe 3 hours so that I felt, again, well digested. And I would eat something that it contains at least 30 grams of protein. And maybe I would just have a meal, but like not a stuffed meal. I'd want to be able to 3 hours later to feel not stuffed, right? So a light meal, but I don't mean like a teeny meal. My goal is when I get into the gym that I'm not distracted by my hunger either being too full or too hungry. So I'll eat in such a way that that feels good. Now, whenever I eat, unless it's like I said, when I just want to take the edge off before my workout. If I'm eating a meal, I always get at least 30 grams of protein in that meal. So if I'm eating a meal before the gym, I'll definitely do that. Then after the gym, when I'm hungry, it doesn't have to be right away. Again, if you're not an elite athlete, if you're sort of new to working out, your anabolic window, the window in which your body prioritizes muscle growth and needs the protein to help feed that muscle growth, that is a very big window. It's not a tight window. Those people that are like sucking down a protein shake after they drop the weight, it's not that short a window, even for experienced lifters. But most people watching this probably not experienced lifters. For us, that anabolic window is really big. So when you're hungry after your workout, eat a good meal that contains at least 30 grams of protein. And so it doesn't have to be complicated. It's mostly about what kind of foods make you feel good, feel energized, don't feel weighed down, you don't feel like nauseous. But I do think what's most important before the gym is I always make sure to drink an electrolyte supplement. So I'll have an Element or a Relight. I'll make sure to drink half of it by the time I've started my workout, and then I'll just sip on it through my workout from there forward. More than anything, that extra sodium is going to be helpful in the workout. So yeah, that's kind of it. It's a lot about how you feel. Some people have faster digestion than I seem to, and so they can eat a bigger meal closer to when they're working out. But generally speaking, it doesn't have to be super complicated. Do you feel better when you eat this? Do you feel worse when you eat that? A little trial and error in terms of what makes you feel best at the gym, and like you have enough gas in your tank to do the workout that you want to do. But it does not have to be a big meal. But you do, again, just like rules for any meal, at least 30 grams of protein in a meal is your best bet for getting the food your muscles need for growth from your workout. So hopefully that is helpful. All right, let's see. Oh, and then the calorie thing. Okay, got it. So some people argue it's only insulin, and insulin is all that matters. Some people argue that it's calories. And let's discuss. So once upon a time, I thought it was only about the insulin. And so it was all about the just the carb count, just lower your carb count, just lower your carb count. And I did that, and it worked great for a while. And then I stalled and did some research, and then I started playing with my calories. And then I unstalled, and I lost another 45 pounds. At this point, maybe 50 pounds. It's hard to keep track. So there you go. So I'm totally down with not counting calories if not counting calories works for you. If you are, because I think it's true, a lot of people, you can go keto, cut the carbs, focus only on the carbs, lower the insulin. So, you're a lot of us are insulin resistant. Our body doesn't respond well to insulin. We have big struggles there. So we lower the carb amount, our insulin level drops. We become more insulin sensitive. We become less insulin resistant. We become metabolically healthier. The button to push for your insulin no longer helps, right? So you've gotten into a place where your metabolism is improved. I mean, it's not maybe perfect, but it's better. Your body is doing better things. You're not so insulin resistant. And so if you're then stalled at that point, calories are the thing to look at. Now, not everyone needs to go there. Some people, they just cut the carbs and get all the way to their goal weight. Myself, I still weighed over 200 pounds. That was not my goal weight. And so I then started looking at both carbs and calories and started losing weight again when I started adjusting for the appropriate amount of calories for my body, which is not maybe the appropriate amount of calories for your body. And why is that? So calories are a unit of measure. right? But when people say a calorie is a calorie, that's true. A calorie is a calorie, but foods are more than calories. So paying attention to calories doesn't mean calories matter more than anything else. Because you could say, like, money is money, but are you like spending that money to buy firewood, or are you burning the money for heat, right? Money is money, but what your body does with it is different. And so, a calorie, because a calorie is, it's like an inch, it's a unit of measure. A food is not a food. A calorie is a calorie, but a food is not a food. And we don't eat calories, but we can measure the calories in our food. That makes sense. So when people say like calories in, calories out, most people don't understand what that means. And so they misuse it, and then it's meaningless. And so I'm more like, hey, understand what it truly means. Because there was a period when I was stalled and all I was counting was calories. I'm sorry, all I was counting was carbs. And I was so frustrated. I was like, I'm as low. I was carnivore for part of the time. And I was like, I can't get any lower in terms of the carbs here, really. And I just started to feel like I was broken again. I felt like I was broken when before I found keto, and now I'm broken again. And so that was not good. And so I was like, I don't think I'm broken. I think I just misunderstand what's happening with my body. And I started to learn more about energy and metabolism. And then I started tracking my calories, and then I lost another 45 pounds. So I have not found it to be true that calories are immaterial. I do not think most explanations of calories are good. I think most people oversimplify. I think people use that calories as a word to abuse other people, and I don't want that. But, if you're tracking things, you can see trends. You can see that, oh, when I eat this many calories from these types of whole foods, this is what happens. Oh, when I eat this many calories from these types of this is what happens to my body. I can also see that if I eat the same amount of calories from not whole foods, from junk food, something else happens to my body, right? And so it's data that you can evaluate how your body responds to what you're eating, and it's helpful. Data is helpful. But I did have to go through a period where I reprogrammed my brain to not think of calories as assholes. Sorry, I couldn't come up with another word. I was trying. Calories used to be this thing I used to beat myself up with. And you can't do that. You can't. If you're still doing that, you probably shouldn't be counting them, because you need to divorce you need to get over your trauma, your diet trauma. If we grew up in the 80s, we have diet trauma, trust me. And we need to get over that so that we can actually truly use and understand these things, right? So, yeah. Like if you're in an abusive relationship for a while with a guy, and then you break up with him and you think all guys are abusive. No, just that guy. So calories aren't abusive. Your relationship to the calories were abusive. That makes sense. And now it's time to get a different perspective. They still exist. You could choose not to date them. It's totally your call, but you have to find some way forward. So hopefully there we go. Julie said the Go Here link to the book doesn't work. So commonsenselabsbook.com. Did you try that? You were the HHTPS, that one. Put that into, that might be helpful. Hold on. Let me grab it for you. Put it in notes. Copy. Where are you? Okay, I just put it in the note, in the comments. Go there. That should work. Melissa asked, what about BCAAs necessary? So what is a BCAA? BCAA stands for branched chain amino acids. There are 3 so there are 20-ish. There's one that kind of floats in and out, 20 to 21 amino acids. Of those 9 are called essential amino acids. Of those 9, 3 are called branched chain amino acids. Branched chain amino acids have been found to better support muscle growth of all the amino acids, although one of them is of primary concern, and that's leucine. So here's the deal. You can kind of think about amino acids as the building blocks of muscle, but like leucine is what, wow, that is a mixed analogy. Let me say it a different way. You can think of all of the amino acids as all the wiring in a house. And then, but leucine is the light switch. So you need enough leucine to switch the electricity on. But if you didn't have all the wiring, that flicking the switch wouldn't do anything. But again, if you don't flick the switch, the light still would come on, right? So you need all the amino acids. But leucine is of primary concern in many ways. It's not of sole concern, though. And so leucine is one of the 3 branched chain amino acids. The short answer is no, you do not need BCAAs. You need all the amino acids. If you're getting a meal of 30 grams of protein before or after your workout within a couple of hours when you're a newbie, for sure, you certainly don't need them. The only people I would suggest might need BCAAs, actually, I would say nobody needs BCAAs. If you're a vegan, I might suggest you supplement with EAAs, which stands for essential amino acids. However, if you eat enough high quality protein, they are absolutely unnecessary to supplement BCAAs or even EAAs. And I would rather people get those things from food than from supplements. I would rather, if you do want it in a beverage form, I would rather you use like a whey protein shake, which shows better results containing all 9 essential amino acids and then a BCAA. A lot of people like BCAAs. They've often put them in drinks that taste kind of good. I would say just get an electrolyte beverage and you get the same effect in terms of the flavor and the enjoyment. But no, BCAAs, total waste of money in my opinion. Facebook user, for some reason I have no name. Hello, Facebook user. Any good links to find good workout weightlifting exercises to do at home? I am working on that. I don't know, honestly. Terry said, I didn't like your trial and error approach, and so I started doing it, and here I am, 161 pounds down, 9 more to go. Congratulations. I appreciate you, Terry. You're awesome. Said, I wanted you to tell me exactly what to eat, but I like that your method taught me how to help. Yeah, I'm not big into like meal plans or like real, like do this exact thing. I used to do meal plan, but I want you to have a life that works for you forever. So there you go. Anne Marie, does the continuous glucose monitor help you with that versus watching calories? Great question. So a continuous glucose monitor is very, very helpful in terms of managing your blood sugars. So if you're trying to get healthy, having managed blood sugars, super important for health. So if you're someone that struggles with blood sugar regulation, like you're up and down and up and down and up and down, you certainly would benefit from some continuous glucose monitoring. Blood sugar regulation is easier in a healthier body. So if you're, they kind of go together, metabolic health and good blood sugar management. But you can have great blood sugars and still weigh considerably more than you want to weigh. So blood sugar management is a great thing, but it won't help you lose weight necessarily. We'll say if your blood sugars are being well managed, you're more likely to be in a state where you're going to lose. No, that's not true. You could eat in a way, you could absolutely eat in a way where you were gaining weight and still have good blood sugar control. So monitoring with a CGM is super great for your health and wellness long-term. But it does not cause, it's sort of like if you have one healthy habit, you're more likely to be healthy in other ways. And certainly having good blood sugar is going to make you healthier, which is going to make it easier than other things. And the kinds of foods that tend to blow up your blood sugar, like a lot of pastries and things, are also going to be bad for your weight. But at the same time, there is a path where you could be gaining weight and having good blood sugars, at least in the short term. So it's not necessarily going to make you lose weight. Cheryl says, having trouble going low carb, 30 total carbs. Doctor told me to do 50 to 70. What do you think? 50 to 70 carbs is certainly better than 200 carbs, right? So if you're saying you're having trouble with 30, but you could do 50 to 70, well, 50 to 70 sounds good. I actually eat more like that these days. I used to do lower than 20 grams of carbs. That was a great time in my life. Excuse me. I'm glowing. In terms of, I learned a lot and I really enjoyed my keto experience. And it was really good for me to have a period of that metabolically, behaviorally, all sorts of things. But now I'm a metabolically fairly healthy person and I enjoy a few more carbs and I lose weight a little bit better at a slightly higher carb number. Not because we need carbs. It's because I find my eating easier to manage when I have more vegetables. Like when I have a lot of vegetables, now, this wasn't true before, but now when I have a lot of vegetables, I feel fuller and I don't overeat as much. Whereas that was not the case before keto. When I started keto, vegetables didn't really make me feel full. So having more vegetables wasn't a winning strategy. And it just has shifted over the last 5 years. All right. So Cheryl, it's certainly better than a lot. You know, it just depends on what works for you. Larry says BCAAs are great for the company selling them. Absolutely. And if your trainer is trying to sell you BCAAs or somebody in your life, and ask them if they're maybe open to doing a little more research about that. Because sometimes we get stuck into thinking things are true that aren't true. And there's a lot of evidence about it. Jean says, do you think it's easier to lose with carnivore? I think for some people it is. Absolutely. I think for some people it is easier to lose with carnivore. I think everybody should try carnivore. I'm going to say that. I think everyone should give it a good go for a period of time, like 3 months of carnivore, hardcore carnivore, like not like cut out sweeteners, cut out all sorts of stuff, like hardcore carnivore, at least for a month. Give it a good go. See how you feel. See how you function. See how your life works. See how your food cravings are. And by 3 months, you'll know if that's an approach that, at least for the time being, is one you should stick with. I did it. And here are the good things I got out of it. It would appear that it helped me clear up some gut problems that I was having. Because before I was carnivore, my B12 and iron levels were always pitifully low, no matter how much I supplemented those things or how much meat I ate. And then after being carnivore, I was able to better absorb B12 and iron. And so my interpretation of that is that some gut stuff got cleared up so that I was better absorbing the nutrients from what I was eating. So that was a big win. I did lose some weight the first month that I went carnivore. My face looked a lot slimmer. I think I dropped some inflammation, but I did not lose any more weight after that. And ultimately, I found it wasn't the right approach for me and went back to keto and then went to what I would call more like low carb, high protein. And that's what I found worked best for me. So I do better and I lose more weight with a high vegetable count. But I think everyone should try carnivore because for a lot of people, it is the ticket to help their hunger cues, right? I think when we eat a lot of sweeteners and we eat a lot of allow looser rules where we can have like keto junk food and things like that, sometimes our hunger signals are not signaling right. Junk food, whether it's keto or not keto, is going to mess with those things. And you can't really have junk food on carnivore if you're doing it right, right? And so that's going to be a really great elimination period. So do I think everyone loses more weight on carnivore? No. Do I think everyone should check to see if they might lose more weight on carnivore? Yes. So that's my recommendation. Sherry says, what is it? Carnivore? Carnivore means just eating animal products. And then some people do without dairy as well, but not everybody. But carnivore just means so it's meat, eggs, cheese, high fat dairy, butter. Just did it come from an animal? Yes or no? Cheryl says, I'm on BCAAs, had a normal DEXA scan after doing osteopenia for 5 years, didn't shrink in those 2 years. I had shrunk in the past 2. That's great. So BCAAs are a type of, they're a type of amino acids, right? And so amino acids help with protein. I'm sorry, amino acids help with bone, right? Our bone is made of protein. But I would rather than someone adding BCAAs, I would rather see them eat more protein. So Cheryl, you didn't eat any more protein in those years than you were eating before. You kept your protein the same and you just added BCAAs, or were you also eating a bit more protein? Now, if you have, this is why I said, right, the vegans, if the vegans are here, if you're a vegan, oh, I said it that way. If you're a vegan, definitely add some BCAAs. But if you're eating meat, add more meat. You'll get the BCAAs are in there. Branched chain amino acids are in meat. So eat more meat. You'll get, because think about it this way, right? We don't eat just for protein. We eat for protein and the nutrients in the meat, right? I mean, we eat for a lot of things, but we eat. So if we're trying to, when we increase our protein from whole foods, and we get niacin, we get zinc, and we get selenium, and we get the B12, and we get all these vitamins and minerals in that meat because it's food. When we get BCAAs, we're just getting protein. There are no other nutrients with that protein. So if you just did the chemical formula for how much protein you need and you drank it in even EAAs, essential amino acids, so all 9 instead of just the 3 BCAAs, you'd become nutrient deficient, even though you were getting enough protein. So I think of it like protein is your opportunity to get good nutrition. So you waste it if you're spending that protein somewhere else. If you want to drink BCAAs, feel free, go ahead, just add it on top of a good amount of protein. It's not going to add any muscle mass to your body, which is pretty much why people drink BCAAs. And if you want to give them a try to see if they help you, absolutely. There's just been a lot of studies that have shown that they are not more beneficial than eating more protein. Said I did. Yeah, you did eat more protein. So, Yu Chang says, how do you keep the momentum going? I can try a short period of time, then I have a huge binge. Okay. So the first thing is, if you tend to binge, you might be overly restricting. So my first goal would be to clean up your diet. Focus on eating just whole foods, high protein, high fat, low refined foods, not eating junk food, not eating highly refined foods, right? So meat and eggs and cheese and, leafy green vegetables and that kind of thing. And don't try and be overly restrictive. And don't let yourself have access to junk food. Tend not to binge on broccoli or, eggs. Try eating a dozen hard-boiled eggs in one sitting. Probably some of you can, I believe you, but right? It's not the same as what we tend to binge on. So first I would say clean up your food quality, eat whole foods, cut out highly processed foods, and don't be super hungry much. Don't undereat, and I would bet the binging improves. Also do some work around the emotional side, because binges often have an emotional element. And, notice you wanting to go to binging when you're having feelings, and find other things to do. Read a book, talk to a friend, go for a walk, right? Do the other things, but not the food things when those feelings come up. And so kind of it's a 1-2 punch. eating the types of foods that increase satiety, not under eating, and then finding other coping mechanisms that aren't about eating. And that's how you just back and forth and back and forth. You just work on that 1, 2, 1, 2, work the steps, back and forth. And over time, you just don't binge. It'll happen. Now, if you continue to have problems, I would maybe get some like professional help in terms of like therapy or a coach to work with you on like the triggers for your binging and how to like avoid them. Like you're like, hey, every time I go to the ice cream shop, I binge. Don't go to the ice cream shop, right? So it's like, okay, how do we take this back a step? If I don't have it in my house, I can't eat it. So, okay, maybe I need to not have it in my house, right? So like, how do we avoid the pitfalls? Debbie says, I finally got annoyed with my reluctance, I can't speak, to go to the gym and went. I found 2 weight machines I didn't feel awkward using. Congratulations. It's just like, it's one at a time. There's no hurry here. To just keep expanding. And then when people seem friendly to you in the gym, you can always say, hey, I saw you using that machine. I have no idea how to use it. Would you mind showing me what you do with that? Don't interrupt them in the middle of a set, but when they get up, maybe ask them, what does that machine do? Do you know? Do you mind if I ask you a question? I always start that way. Do you mind if I ask you a question? I'm new here. I just saw you using that machine. What does that machine do? Right? Get curious and get friendly. It'll be great. Debbie says, I am doing, Debbie again, hi Debbie, BBBE. BBBE stands for beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Ken Berry and Nisha Berry run BBBE stuff. And 2 Crazy Ketos talk about it a lot too. So if you want more info, those are some good resources. It basically means it's like a more limited approach to carnivore, right? It doesn't include chicken or a little bit of pork, the bacon, but anyway, just 1 week. And I'm amazed at how satiety switches on and cravings for sweeteners switch off. Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so good for people to try it. Try that carnivore, the BBBE, try that shift and see how your body responds. If your satiety is just going through the roof, you're going to lose weight because you're going to be eating less. If you're cutting out the kinds of foods that you tend to overeat on. Again, it's hard to eat more than a dozen eggs in a sitting. All right. Suzanne, yeah, get full faster. Absolutely. Melissa, we have a family tradition of apple cider donuts from a local orchard. Donuts once a year. Are you asking me if I would eat donuts once a year? I will say when I was still at risk of binging, so I was a binge eater. I was an emotional eater. I was an overeater for most of my life. When I first went keto, I knew that if I let myself step off the path, I would slide down the hill, right? Imagine you're on like a hiking trail at the top of a mountain. You step off the path and down you go, rolling all the way to the bottom, right? I felt like when I first started keto, if I deviated from this straight, like very narrow path, I was going to roll down the hill because I knew. So they say something in sober communities. So people who've dealt with like addiction problems, I knew I had another drunk in me, but I wasn't sure I had another sober, which means I knew I could very easily go back to binging, but I didn't know if I had the strength in me to come back to the path. And as long as I felt that way, I did not get off the path. But at a certain point, I was like, the path feels very safe and wide now. I feel very stable. I feel like if I stepped off the path, I would not roll down the hill. I would just step back on the path because it was like I was in a meadow. There's a path and I could step to the side and I get back on. And once I emotionally felt that in my life, then I could have a day when I had a donut because the path was right there waiting for me to get back on. Does that make sense? But so it's very person to person. From a metabolic, biologic sense, one day out of 365 where you eat a few, like even 2 or 3 donuts. It's not gonna be an issue unless you're allergic to donuts. Nothing really bad is gonna happen. You might weigh a few more pounds for a few more days because you put on some water weight. Nothing really bad's gonna happen. But is that gonna cause you to roll down the hill into a cesspool of mess and binge eating and and then you have to like claw your way back up the hill? Then I would not do it. But if you're like, I can step on, I can step off. Now you want to make sure you're not like cha-chaing at that point, right? On, off. You don't want to do that. But if you're like, I can make a decision and then I can just pop back on. If you feel secure like that in yourself, I'd have a donut. But if you felt like you were hanging on by your fingernails already, I would not have a donut. That's my personal perspective at this point in my life. All right. Terry says, I lost 92 pounds on Carnivore, but I was still binge eating meat. I'd eat till I was stuffed, and I had to change to keto and calorie counting because of my 8-month stall. I needed the more structured approach. Yeah. And so, different strokes for different folks. I am here for people like Terry who, I'm here for all of you, but I am especially here for people like Terry who are like, I did not lose weight doing the thing that everyone else says I should lose weight doing, or I didn't continue to lose the weight, right? We all lost some weight, or else we wouldn't. Let's just be honest. If we didn't lose weight before the stall, we would not be here still. We would be at Weight Watchers. We would be doing something else because we wouldn't have stayed long enough, right? Yu Chang says, I was on keto, lost the weight, then gained all my weight back. Now it seems keto is too restrictive. Your point of not being too restrictive and don't undereat makes a lot of sense. It takes a lot of work not to go down that path. Yeah, absolutely. You got to do what works for you. Now, I will say, when I was first keto, I was super militant. I was like, this is the path. Stay on the path. No one can deviate from the path. And like, I was like, I don't know why anyone would ever want to get off the path. I was very self-righteous because I was new. Anyone, when you're new, you're like a convert. You're in it. You're like, but you live a little, you learn. And keto isn't the only path. There are many paths. You have to find your path. But I would say, like, you got to know if you're on the path or off the path, right? And so Melinda says, so some paths are wide and some are narrow, and you got to know what works for you. Melinda says, still scared I'd roll down the hill. And that is good to know, Melinda. You got to know. You got to know yourself about these things. You can't BS yourself. If you BS yourself here, life will be very painful. You got to know yourself. And there is freedom in the restriction if that restriction gives you comfort, right? And so some people are like, I can't do that. It's too restrictive. Okay. So now you know that about yourself. So where do we set your boundaries? Where do we set? Because everyone has boundaries. Everyone. Where you set them is personal. So some people will go 20 grams of carbs and I'm not going to count. I'm going to do it this way. Other people are like, 50 grams of carbs works for me, right? Everybody has some kind of boundary if they're trying to achieve a goal. Now, some people are like paying no attention to what they weigh, no attention to their body composition. They don't have any goals about it. They just like to eat, and they don't have any boundaries because they're not trying to get anywhere. You don't need a path if you're not going anywhere, right? And so, but if you're trying to go somewhere, you need the path. You need to create the path for you. All right. I think that's good for tonight. I'm going to go take a shower to cool off because I am so hot. Oh, okay. I'll answer this last question. Judy, does artificial sweetener stall weight loss? No. I'll say it that way. No. And sweet tastes can derail some people. So artificial sweeteners metabolically in and of themselves, I don't think stall weight loss. However, some people, when they eat sweet things, their appetite is out of control. So here's what I would say if you want to give this a test. Track what he eats for a month or 2 weeks. 2 weeks is fine. track every bite of food that goes into his mouth for 2 weeks. And he has his normal soda habit. Eat the exact same things for the next 2 weeks. See if he loses weight, and not have the Diet Cokes. Have him switch to water or unsweetened tea, an unsweetened drink of some kind. Did he lose weight or gain weight or stay the same, comparatively speaking? That will tell you. That will give you the data you're looking for. So give it a try and see how he and then you can also see, oh wow, I was much hungrier when I drank the sodas versus when I didn't, or I didn't notice any difference, right? So that would be what I would say to do. Tammy says, I'm off all diabetes meds and scared to go off keto. Well, you do not need to eat anything that scares you. If it really scares you, don't do it. But maybe you might say, I'm not going to be eating fruit, or, by the way, when I talk about eating more carbs, I'm not talking about eating pastries. I'm like, occasionally I'll have some fruit, right? Try adding some more leafy greens, Tammy, and see what your blood sugar does. My guess is blood sugar is not going to get super high from some extra spinach or chard or something like that, right? And so go just do that. Loosening your boundaries does not mean having no boundaries, right? You don't go from highly restricted 20 grams of total carbs, no sweets, no sugar, to like Krispy Kreme donuts. You don't do that. You go to like, let me see how adding a little more leafy greens to my diet works, right? You're just baby steps of things. And if you are happy the way you are now, don't change it. Keep doing it. There's no problem with that. But if you're like, I miss salad, try that. All right, guys. Have a good night. I will see you later.